3 engineers, 1 repository, and last week they agreed in a meeting on exactly how the desk should behave. So this should be the boring episode. They pull the same branch and run the same task. Each of them keeps their own copy of the agreed rules on their own machine. And they get 3 different behaviors. One follows the house style, one ignores it, and one stops to ask permission for every single step. Nobody broke the agreement. Nobody is doing anything wrong. The repository is identical. Freeze, because an agreement isn't a mechanism, and everything that actually decides behavior is sitting in files that nobody committed. Here is how the exam asks it. 3 engineers share one repository and get different behavior. The team requires that every run use the same model version and the same project rules. What should the team do? The item parks in the corner, and by the end you'll know every file that can make 2 identical repositories behave differently. Call it for more of your 53, and this is the episode that turns a pile of config trivia into one picture you can hold. Before any rules, let's name the files, because every one is a real path you can go and look at. There are only 2 kinds of file here. Claude.md holds your written rules in plain words. Settings.json holds your switches in config. And each kind shows up in more than one place. There is a Claude.md in your home folder that applies to every project you touch. There's one committed in the repository for the team, and another can sit inside a subfolder for just that folder. Settings works the same way with one extra row. There is a settings.json committed for the team. And there's a settings.local.json that is yours alone and never gets committed. Here's the whole episode in one sentence, and everything else is just detail hanging off it. 2 kinds of file in 4 places. The rules stack and the switches fight. Rules stacking means they all apply at once. Switches fighting means exactly one wins. They're opposite behaviors, and mixing them up is where most of the confusion lives. Start with the rules, and here is the fact that fixes most of the confusion about them. Those Claude.md files don't override each other, they stack. Everything that applies gets joined into one long set of instructions, broadest first. So the organization's file leads and the folders file comes last. So your personal rule does not replace the project's rule, it sits next to it, and both are live, which has a consequence worth saying out loud. Contradictions don't resolve, they both just show up and the model has to pick. So if 2 engineers wrote opposing rules at different levels, nothing errors. You get a coin flip, and that's your bug. Now the row for the subfolder, because it behaves differently from the other 2, it doesn't load when the session starts, it loads when work actually reaches that folder. Which is why behavior can change halfway through a task with nobody touching anything and nothing in the log to explain it. One more thing about these files, and it's the one people trip on daily. Editing a Claude.md while a session is already running does nothing to that session. The contents were read once at the start, so your edit lands on the next session, not this one. Clear it, compact it, or restart, and your edit is live. That explains most of the "it ignored my rule" complaints you'll ever hear. Switch to settings.json, a different kind of file holding switches rather than sentences. Inside it you'll find keys like model and a permissions block holding default mode and deny. Learn those names because an exam question prints them rather than describing them. And these files combine the opposite way from the rules. The words stacked, the switches pick a single winner. That order is called precedence, which just means a strict ranking of who wins when 2 of them disagree. Top of the ladder is what your organization set, and nothing below can overrule it. Then the command line, then your local file for this project, then the project's committed file, and last your home folder defaults. Look at where the command line sits though, because it's above the project's committed file. A single run can still override a committed setting, which is why the strongest guarantees are deny rules rather than ordinary settings. There's one exception to that ladder, and the exam likes it, so slow down here. Keys that hold a list don't replace each other. They merge. A single value from a stronger file wins outright, but two lists from different files end up joined together. Which is how a list of allowed actions ends up holding entries nobody on the team remembers adding, and now the two rows that look almost identical and behave nothing alike. Settings.json is committed and shared. Settings.local.json is yours. It's git ignored and nobody else ever sees it. That local file is where your own approvals collect. Every time you click don't ask again. So it's the first thing to suspect when two machines behave differently. And a file you cannot share cannot carry a promise. Hold on to that because you are about to need it. Stay inside settings.json because one key in it decides more than the rest, and the internet will mislead you about it. The model key is how you say which version every run uses, and the question is simple. When the name you put there has no date on it, are you asking for one specific version or for whatever happens to be newest? It used to be a pointer. On older names, a name without a date resolved to whatever the newest dated version was. So the advice was always the same. Add the date, pin it down, don't let it drift under you. On the current generation, that's no longer true. A name without a date is the fixed version and the model behind it never changes. When there is an update, it doesn't slide in underneath you. It ships under a brand new name. The documentation calls the old belief a common misconception in those exact words, which tells you the people writing exam questions know you might still carry it. So the honest answer to is this pinned is it depends which generation you are naming, and on the current one it's already pinned. Second key worth knowing by name, permissions, and inside it default mode. Permission modes decide how much the tool asks you before it acts, and there's a naming trap here that the exam loves. The mode that stops and asks about everything is called manual on your screen, but its value in the file is the word default. So here is your tell. If a question prints default as a config value, it means the careful mode. If it says the default behavior, it means whatever that setup happens to start in, and those aren't the same thing. An interactive session and a scripted one start in different places, and a scripted run starts careful every time. Now the line under it, and this is the one to carry out of the whole episode. A deny rule is simply a named thing that must never run written into that list. And it blocks in every single mode, including the one that skips prompts entirely. Nothing turns it off. So if a question says a tool must never run, the answer is a deny rule, not a mode and not a polite instruction in a rules file. Back to the three engineers at full size, and now you are armed. Option 1. Agree as a team to use the same model and follow the same rules. Option 2. Commit Claude.md and pin the model key in the shared settings.json. Option 3. Have each engineer set their personal settings to match. Option 4. Use a model name without a date so everyone automatically tracks the same newest version. Name the decision first. This is what Claude sees and says because every option is about what each run starts with. Then the constraint, and it's a guarantee. The team requires the same version and the same rules on every run. Agreeing as a team dies twice. It's guidance where the question asked for a mechanism. And it's the corpse from the cold open where three people already agreed and still diverged. Personal settings die for the reason I told you to hold on to. That file is git ignored, so it can't be shared. And a thing you cannot share cannot enforce a team guarantee. And the dateless name option dies on the documented fact from the middle of this episode. On the current generation, that name is a fixed snapshot, not a tracker of the newest thing. It's written to sound modern, and it describes the old behavior, which is the most dangerous distractor shape there is. What survives is the committed pair, and you can point at both rows in the tree. Claude.md in the repository and the model key pinned in the shared settings file. That's exactly what the cold open was missing. An agreement, 3 private copies, and nothing on disk that every run picks up. Here is what the 3 engineers taught you. And it's still one sentence. 2 kinds of file in 4 places, the rules stack and the switches fight. CLAUDE.md files stack instead of overriding the subfolder one loads late, and an edit only reaches the next session. Settings.json has a strict ladder with the organization on top, and lists merge instead of replacing. Settings.local.json is invisible to your team, so it can never carry a guarantee. The model key without a date is a fixed version on the current generation, which is the reverse of the old advice, so pin deliberately. And a deny rule blocks in every single mode, which makes it the only real guarantee in this whole episode. The counter moves to 25 of 53, which is very nearly half the exam, and you still haven't touched the what runs quarter. Tomorrow the desk is configured perfectly and starts giving answers that are polite, fluent, and completely made up.